Graylog elevates enterprise-level cybersecurity through its comprehensive SIM, centralized log management, and API security solutions. Built on the Graylog platform, Graylog Security combines SIM, security analytics, threat detection, and incident response capabilities. Unlike traditional SIMs, which offer complex and costly setups, Graylog Security simplifies security and operational challenges with an optimal blend of licensing, people, and infrastructure costs. To see a demo, visit securityweekly.com/Graylog. BigID is the leading data security posture management, or DSPM, vendor, and they do DSPM differently. DSPM centers around risk management and how organizations need to assess, understand, identify, and remediate data security risks across their data. BigID seamlessly integrates with your existing tech stack and helps you uncover dark data, identify and reduce risk, take action through remediation, and scale your data security strategy. BigID is reshaping the future of data security, and CB Insights named BigID the leader in DSPM and the most disruptive cybersecurity software in the space. Visit securityweekly.com/BigID to learn more. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Security Weekly listeners can save $100 on their RSA Conference Pass. RSA Conference will take place April 28th through May 1st in San Francisco and on demand. To register using our discount code, you can visit securityweekly.com/RSAC25 and use the code 5. What is this code? 5U5SECWeekly. Okay, 5U5SECWeekly is that code. We hope to see you there. Sorry, the fives look a lot like S's. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. Check out securityweekly.com/ESW392 if you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles we're covering. And there's a lot of writing today, so you might want to check that out. I've got a little a DeepSeek Primer here for our AI segment. And it was something I had already written up for somebody else. If I were to venture a guess, we've probably all advised people on DeepSeek in some form or fashion this week. Am I wrong?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or hide under the covers is like,
Jackie,
I finally said
Jackie
something because I figured I had to, but yes.
Yeah. And it's amazing because it's like, okay, like there's an app, and I've laid it out in the notes here, but just for our listeners, in case there's a lot of confusion out there, and there's a company, DeepSeek, which somehow came out of a hedge fund. I don't fully understand how that worked, but there's a lot about China that I don't fully understand. They released some open source.
China, no one understands, Adrian. It's okay.
There's books. I have some books in my reading list. This is something that I'm actively working on. So they released some foundation models. So these are models that you can download, you can run on your own machine. I've got two of them on my laptop, and one of them, the smallest distilled one runs really well there. And I try to go for something bigger, and it's pretty slow, 2 or 3 tokens per second, but still pretty good for a laptop that has no discrete GPU in it. And not a whole lot of danger from that, I don't think. It's just data, right? It's just a model. It can't execute code. It can't open a TCP connection and send stuff off to China. So there's some definite confusion there. But there is also a SaaS interface, so you can go to chat.deepseek.com. I'm pretty sure everything you type in there is just straight, China owns that now. So be more wary of that. And the mobile app, which is basically an app version of that same SaaS front end, and the API, which is probably making both of those work behind the scenes. They're probably both built on top of that API. So that is what DeepSeek is. If you somehow, I don't want to say if you've missed out on the news, because I've not seen any of this really well explained and broken down, which is what we try and do in the podcast here.
There was just a lot of kind of fear mongering I saw, and that it's frustrating because it makes it harder to get actual information out there about here's a way to use it safely, here's a way not to. So I posted a Super Troopers GIF and was like, I'm going to pistol whip the next person to post this snippet of their TOS with no context, because that makes it really hard to actually explain the real risks to people. So people are either just going to disregard everything they hear and go use, the website version. I think it's also worth noting, everybody listening probably knows this, but don't put it on your phone. In addition to sending all your data, anything you install on your phone, you give significantly more pervasive access to data than you do through a website. So there'll be a lot more than just your chats going to China on your phone. But yeah, I didn't see anybody that was actually explaining utility. I shouldn't say that. Andrew Ng from Coursera has a really good kind of take on it and write up that I saw. But other than that, it was mostly just people either saying this was the most dangerous thing in the world, or this is the most amazing breakthrough to machine learning we've ever seen.
Believe it or not, I watched a really well done Morning Brew segment on DeepSeek earlier today. Morning Brew has some decent content. I was impressed for something made for just a general audience. It was pretty solid. What was the terms of service? Do you remember particularly what that was that people are sharing? I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, it's from the Wired magazine article, and it essentially just says your data is processed in Shenzhou, and there's, it explicitly tells you where your data is stored and processed, and that you're giving them access to it. And there's like this whole security relativity that happens where it's like, oh no, like, this is the only way our data is going to go to China, when we know for a fact that every major telecom company in the U.S. is compromised. So it's like, I don't know. It's all
more efficient is to just give it to them direct.
But you cleared your cookies, so you're safe.
Yeah. You're using your secure browser too.
Yeah.
Use DeepSeek through NordVPN. You'll be fine.
It's go ahead.
That's sarcasm, by the way, for folks who can't zero in on sarcasm.
It's funny because I was actually one of my sales colleagues had written something up from an event he had gone to the evening before, and I took a look at it and I thought, oh, this is really good stuff. And my day job is as a product marketer, content marketer, jack of all trades, everything but like brand and buzzword marketing. And so I took it and I distilled it down into little bullet points that I thought the rest of the team could use. And he was like, wow, that's amazing. Did you use LLM for it? And I said, no, I just did it. He's like, oh, it'd be really easy to use, it'd save you time. And I said, it would save me time, but it would be completely inaccurate. I cannot use an LLM for writing because I just have not found enough accuracy, and there's way too buzzwordy. And he's like, oh, well, you should try DeepSeek. And I had actually never heard of it before like 2 days ago. And I was like, really? Why? And he went into this whole thing about how awesome it was and how much better it was than ChatGPT or Gemini.
It's definitely a different tone.
I started looking at it and I was like, huh. And then the next day, boom, there you go. I'm like, well, I'm really glad I didn't put any proprietary company notes. Not that I'm stupid enough to think that somebody's not getting my data somewhere. I've stopped putting in fake birthdays and phone numbers places because what the hell? But it was just, kind of that moment where it stops you in your tracks and you go, okay, this is why I do what I do. Because 2 days ago, I had no idea what this was. And somebody was convincing me to use it. And this person works in security. And now here I am reading all these articles about, everybody's using this awesome tool. And, this lovely nation state is looking at your stuff. So, we're a nation state too. Let's just be honest.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. Whether it's us, whether it's, Antarctica, it just depends on, I think there's a few things here that we need to kind of separate. There's security, right? Like, is this app secure for me to use? Is it going to affect my data? There's privacy, which let's face it, if you have a smart fridge in your kitchen, have you considered your privacy there? Yeah. Right? Or your Alexa or whatever it may be. It's interesting how we're only hyper-focused when it's coming from a particular place, but have you considered anytime you put your data out into the internet, anybody can get it, whether on purpose, like through a government agency, or if it gets leaked by accident or whatever it may be.
Do you own
somebody
a
will get it.
car made in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
Because they're all pumping data into the, like, all the time, full time.
The airlines they actually are tracking the movies you watch. So if you thought you were safe, did we discuss this or no? I don't know. But like,
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, if you thought you were safe, like, oh, I'm just going to watch it here. Nobody's going to see my Netflix browsing history, So,
because you can log in now. You can, like,
Well, you
have
don't
your
even
seat
have
number.
to, because
You
it's
have your seat
connected
number.
to your seat, and your seat is
Yes.
connected to your name, and your name is connected to your ID or your
Same.
driver's
Yeah.
license or passport. Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Same thing
they
with
have
most
that
of the
data and
major
using
hotel
it.
brands. So all of those smart TVs in your hotel rooms that you can log into temporarily, and then they log you out when you check out, those all track your data. And that's where I think it's this bizarre thing. The other thing is that you shouldn't be putting this stuff into anything. Like, if it's actually sensitive data, you shouldn't be putting it into ChatGPT. You shouldn't be putting it into Gemini. And I've had this issue at enterprises, where it's like, hey, people are putting customer email addresses into their own, ChatGPT. And so I think people need to understand they shouldn't be putting this data into US tools either.
Regardless, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
threat model, where like it's kind of weird.
And it's a whole xenophobia type thing, right?
Mhm.
One foreigner kills a U.S. citizen. The amount of outrage is 1,000 times, a U.S. citizen killing 100 other U.S. I don't know exactly how that math evens out, how that works. But if it's somebody else, like U.S. companies are allowed to hurt U.S. citizens, but
it's
not
called
foreign ones.
bigot
U.S.
math.
companies break laws.
For security. National security.
Yeah,
Security.
I just reposted an article that I wrote in 2023. I hadn't been updating my blog regularly, and the whole TikTok thing came around again a few weeks ago, and I saw some colleagues, friends on social media. Oh, that was a loud noise. Colleagues, friends on social media, asking opinions about TikTok. And so I had written this article. My blog, my personal blog, was originally started by an old company, and they would give me topics and I would write about them. And they asked me to write about TikTok and the national security implications. And they hated what I had to say because I called out our government. I called out our major tech companies. And I didn't do it meanly. It's factual. These are facts, that they are mining our data, that they are surveilling us. And my company said, you cannot publish this on your blog because technically we own your blog.
Facts are just like your opinion now, though.
Well, that's a whole other thing. I'm going to send you something and then you can put it in the show notes because it's really funny. But so I reposted it because I essentially insulted the U.S. government and U.S.-based social media companies for doing everything China does.
The U.S. government doesn't have feelings. I don't think you can insult it. That's not
No.
works.
My company, But the people at the company were worried that if I said these things about U.S.
they
companies,
were insulted that
right?
You said it.
So it's just funny how this. Yeah, I mean, I jokingly said, it's bigot math, but it's true. It is bigot math, and not recognizing that just because somebody sort of looks like you and talks like you is being prejudiced, biased, bigoted against.
Yeah.
So it's really horrible. And if we're gonna solve any
are friend shaped, but you should not hug one.
Well, the thing is that surveillance and censorship feels way better when it's dipped in high fructose corn syrup and deep fried in canola oil.
Exactly.
So, it's just like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, right? And this is the Western brand of censorship is much more palatable to us than explicit. No, we control what you put on the internet.
Devil, we know.
Us versus them. It's us versus them, right?
Yeah, but until you start I mean, and still, until you're honest with yourself, we're not going to solve these problems. Like, how can we solve a security, a privacy problem? How can we solve data ownership issues if we're not honest about who's doing what and how? If we're not honest about the perpetrators of really bad security and privacy and data handling, then we're not going to stop it. You can't say, you over there, you're not allowed to do it. This isn't like a drinking age, folks. Like, you can't say that it's good for some people and bad for others.
I think we spend too much time focused on the actors and the intentions and the potential intentions, and not enough on the outcomes, on what's actually happening.
But the problem is that everybody is focused on, like, oh, it's Facebook, I'm going to stay on Facebook. It's fine.
Because we got all these fancy names, right? Threat Panda and Salt Typhoon, and like there's whole personas and like I think that shifts a lot of the focus on like state actors and stuff like that. And it makes a bad guy that is easy to just point a finger at.
Yeah.
And
so Google just released a pretty detailed report.
What's the code name for Instagram? What's the code name for Meta? Like, what does CrowdStrike call Meta?
Yeah. So
and you got to remember.
Sorry, Google did just release a pretty interesting report on threat behavior with regard to AI, and by country kind of breaks down how the adversaries from different countries are abusing it and things like that. So there's a little bit out there, but I agree in that we're mostly kind of focused on like who did this and did they violate somebody else's terms of service. That's my favorite part, is it's not like, what actual threat does this pose to the American people? What should we do? What sensible legislation? It's did they violate Microsoft's terms of service? Because if this starts impacting investors.
Yeah. And on the privacy part, like we forget that you are the product. You, the person, are the product. When you fill out that Facebook personality quiz, right? You're giving them a wealth of information for them to target you and whatnot. And so the same thing with ChatGPT. Yeah, it's free for a reason. Like, we need to train more data. Like, go to ChatGPT and ask it, summarize my key interests based on memory, and see what it knows about you. Like, give me a break. Like, people are not really thinking. Like, you are the product. So if you are worried about, I don't know, what are you worried about? Like, I was in a forum and people are like, am I wary, or is it just me, using DeepSeek? And I'm like, let's step back a second. What are you, let's threat model. Like, what are you worried about? And let's apply it to everything you do, not just one app from one particular country, right? So, I don't know.
Yeah, and somebody who was supposed to be a CTO said to me on LinkedIn that I was like, well, how is the local model, dangerous? He said, well, what if every 1 in 1,000 times it makes code, it puts a back door and then the engineer deploys it? And I was like, sir, if one engineer in your company can write, merge, and deploy code, push, merge, and deploy code, that is definitely not a security issue. And I actually said, are you a CTO? But yeah, I think it's definitely it's a very interesting thing that everybody has a take, but none of it is actually based on outcome and actual threat and and it's I gave a talk a couple years ago talking about why it's okay to sell humans as long as their skin and bones aren't attached, and why we haven't decided that the trafficking of human data is just as damaging as the trafficking of humans. Didn't take off. Because really, like, the data and Facebook's bad, but it's the next shadow layer below that, right? It's data brokers. It's the Palantirs and all of these companies that nobody's ever heard of that have made a lot of people billions of dollars, that are taking the pieces from Facebook and the pieces from Google and the pieces from incognito mode and tying them all together. And you can actually buy this pretty little package all about somebody. And like, how that's legal is absolutely beyond my ability
physical
to understand.
presence in stores too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every large
Um,
retailer tracks you by Bluetooth, by the way.
Cities. Do you know cities have Bluetooth trackers and are tracking your the ID of your car's Bluetooth, the MAC address? They're tracking it in cities.
Yeah, so there's this interesting technology called ShotSpotter that was deployed all over major cities, and it's microphones that are supposed to recognize the sound of gunshots and
yeah.
dispatch police immediately. But
And
multiple
triangulate
criminal
them, right?
cases have happened where the microphone recordings of ShotSpotter of actual people talking, because they assured, oh, it's just the specific range of gunshots, like it's not a privacy concern, and they have actually
That's not how
subpoenaed and
microphones work.
used that information for prosecutions.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you can Google
I
it.
guess I was thinking it'd be like high up on buildings, like they wouldn't catch conversation or something like that, like the optimal play. But yeah, if they're right now down near the sidewalk, yeah,
Point it to City Hall and see what you
yeah,
get there.
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
a
I mean,
no-go
it's
zone. Yeah, you
again, it's
can't put
like
them
it's
there.
one of those things where because we keep people so focused on these like buzzy headliney things that pop up every 6 weeks and keep people distracted, we aren't understanding the
Yeah,
full
sleight of hand.
picture of the fact that everything you do, everything you click on, everything you say in your house goes somewhere and then gets sold a million times. Yeah.
Oh man, Eamon said privacy, and we went down a rabbit hole.
What did I
We
tell you
did.
about the 30 minutes? What did I tell you, Adrian?
Yeah, I know it's tough. It's tough. So I wanted to mention, kind of want to take us further down there. Like I've got Notepad open here, and I'm coming up with like threat actor names for U.S. tech companies.
Oh, wait, we can chat GPT that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm like chubby coyote. Maybe we can be coyotes. You know, like China's pandas. We've got a lot of coyotes here. All
Let's see what
50.
That's what DeepSeek says about it.
Anyway, I wanted to mention just the futility of some of these attempts to block Chinese technology. Like the who knows what's going to happen with the TikTok ban? But I was reading an analysis of the DeepSeek mobile app, and it has like 6 ByteDance SDKs embedded in it. And I had totally forgotten that. Well, for ads and stuff like that, ad tech have SDKs, you know, because a lot of free apps, that's how they make money off the apps, is you embed this, Shady Corpse ad kit into your app, and that's how it makes money. And that's how they deploy ads to whoever's playing the game or using the app, whether it's a weather app or a video game or whatever. But yeah, ByteDance had like 26 apps in US app stores, and they pulled out a bunch of them, but then everybody immediately moves to RedNote. And then, there's ByteDance SDKs embedded in other programs. Like that's not the way to fight this battle. I feel like it's going to be so difficult to disconnect that from everything.
It goes back to what Katie said, where until we're ready to say this isn't okay for anybody to do, we can't say this isn't okay for not U.S. companies to do. Like we either are going to say
Yeah.
it's not okay to embed this stuff in software, period, and have some type of federal oversight or whatever that looks like. But nobody's willing to do that right now because so many companies are making so much money tracking you. So yes, I don't think this whole moat idea is ridiculous. Actually, the moat around chips is what caused innovation, because you have one side where these AI companies are incentivized to make things bigger and bigger and bigger because economies of scale, right? Where, when you're not incentivized for that, and we were just talking last week about how dirty US data is and just the internet in general, right? And so when OpenAI's philosophy is just eat everything and then nobody can keep up, it's not efficient, but it tries to kind of force out other competitors in the market who can't amass the same scale. And it's never a long-term effective strategy. People always find ways around the moat.
And everybody's wasting their breath on, was this done fairly? Like, did they really train the models for that much? Or do they have hidden H100s and A100s over there? And none of that matters. The fact is it happened. Sure. Okay. If China cheated, Like, okay, let's assume the answer is yes. What are you going to do now? Like, what's the next step there? You know, they stole from OpenAI, who stole from everyone else. Why should I care? Why should we even be talking about that? You know, I think it's makes more sense to think about, okay, how is this going to impact the industry? If this really was something they could do that quickly, then in about 2 or 3 months, we're going to see it repeated by a bunch of companies that can't afford to build their own Llama, to build their own Claude, to build their own GPT-4. Because if it can be done for that cheaply, it will be done that cheaply by a ton of other companies. And that's the thing we need to prepare for. All of a sudden, the market for this is going to blow wide open. The TAM is going to reach, places where it didn't make sense to integrate generative AI because it was too expensive. At 1/30th or 1/20th or 1/10th of the cost. All of a sudden, now it does. So we see generative AI entering new markets, new devices, new use cases, all of that.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same technical question that's happened since the Industrial Revolution, right? What happens when a car becomes cheap to make, right? What happens when a phone or computer, right? I still remember to this day my 8088 coming in and being shipped with its like 30 meg hard drive, but like, and now like we have this
We didn't have
powerful,
one. We just had 2 floppies.
yeah.
You
So
had to load the OS from a floppy every single time.
wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I guess. I had a luxurious life. So
Uphill in the snow both
But we had
ways.
2 of them.
I guess as technology gets cheaper, more accessible, things are going to get disrupted. Is what I'm trying to say. So it's kind of a natural evolution. I think the question about like proprietary or data being stolen is a good question. As far as I think the security folks of at least Jason from Anthropic, I think he's mentioned before. He's always worried about. He was before mentioned about worried about nation state, and Sam Altman mentioned it in interviews before. Definitely worried about that, and that's been happening for many years, ever since Microsoft and others were trying to do business overseas. So, but
With regards to that data, there's a whole industry popping up of a lot of them are open source tools around just poisoning the data that these companies are collecting. Because people are complaining, OpenAI is hitting my web server 1 million times a day, and I get to pay for that traffic. So
fascinating.
they're building tools to feed bad data to these things, and
you can't charge DeepSeek with stealing data. You can charge them with receiving stolen goods, I guess, because OpenAI never asked permission before it accumulated all the data that it had. So I don't know how you can argue. And that's what I put. So the only thing I had to say about it is I was like, there's an old saying in Tennessee, hers is in Texas, maybe it's in Tennessee. Steal my data once, shame on you. Stolen data can't be stolen again. Like, how are you going to argue that somebody stole something that you stole fair and square? It took us a long time to steal that data. You can't just take it.
It's like a parody. It's so funny.
I told my husband it feels like we're living in a Black Mirror episode that's happening inside the movie Idiocracy. I'm even wearing stupid shoes.
No, that's I think that's a good way of putting it. It's those are 2 things I did not want to see combined in real life, by the way.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
So that did lead to my favorite headline of the year so far from Jason Kobler at 44 Media. OpenAI furious. DeepSeek might have stolen all the data OpenAI stole from us. And then the subtitle is OpenAI shocked that an AI company would train on someone else's data without permission or compensation. Oh, the burn.
It's bizarre.
Yeah. I actually my son is doing a Model UN project about AI in society. I'm trying to have him think about how do you train this data, and
Model UN is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I had a thought exercise with him on just walking through, hey, where did this data come from? Have you considered, and like artists and creative people and all that kind of stuff. So it was interesting.
All he needs to know for Model UN is tariff, tariff, tariff. That's how you do it. That's how it's done.
Funny. That's funny.
I'm hearing Beavis and Butthead in my head when you say that.
We've already got Idiocracy and Black Mirror. We don't need to add Beavis and Butthead to it.
Oh, that would be like the ultimate here. Do we want to talk about the database, DeepSeek database leak? That is cybersecurity and AI all in one. Get it out of it.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff leaked, and I've been advising enterprises for a while that they should be less worried about what's entered in the prompt, and because this happened to OpenAI shortly after ChatGPT was released, there was a bug in Redis, the open source Redis database, and did the same thing. Like it wasn't a wide open database, but people logged in and saw other people's session data at one point. And it was like 5 to 7% of ChatGPT users at the time. But yeah, I think that's a much likelier way for a security issue to happen with one of these things. So yeah, go ahead, Eamon.
Oh no, it was just the fact that the database. I think the ClickHouse database was open. So
I think Wiz covered it, right?
Say again.
Wiz, the company Wiz, researchers at Wiz, yeah.
Wiz talked about it. They had I think show tables was exposed, I believe, from what I saw. I don't know if that was a meme or that was an actual thing. But yeah, it was
on the internet. It's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's now illegal for those check. So,
I mean, for those worried about what data, go ahead and take a look at the leaked data and see what happened there. But yeah, it's and I think the other story also that I think was worth talking about here, so we get out of our system, is whenever an AI is jailbroken. I think that's scary, right?
So they're all jailbroken all the time. Is the I mean, the truth of the matter there, we had the head of Microsoft's AI pen testing team, or AI red teaming team, come on, and she said she could jailbreak Copilot, with like 3 or 4 prompts or something like that. It takes her like 30 seconds, and it's just wide open. It'll do whatever she asks it to. So, that's I mean, people are talking about jailbreaks as if, like on an iPhone, like now you can root it. But with these things, it's a feature, right? Like this is just inherent in the way that they work, that you can always find, like I heard people saying all they have to do is ask DeepSeek in Hebrew and it works. Or even if you ask it in Leet speak, all the protections are gone. Like,
yeah, I saw that one recently. The
jailbreaks are
Anarchist
really
Cookbook in Leet.
and potentially infinite with this technology.
Yeah.
So I think
I guess that begs the question, like, does controlling information really work? Like, we've decided as a society that the best way to protect ourselves is to limit people's access to certain information, like how to make an explosive device and things like that. And obviously we're getting to a point where that's no longer going to be an option. So, what happens then? And, are thousands more people going to start making, all of these crazy things just because they have access to something they didn't used to have access to? Or can be realistic that somebody who really wants to do something is going to find a way to do it, right? So, like,
I think this raises a lot of 90s. You remember the 90s? Everybody was like, internet plus internation equals Star Trek. Like, we're all going to be one people. It's going to be amazing.
No, we're going to watch cat videos and have virtual buddies.
No, it's AI waifus. Hoi. But yeah, expect the jailbreaks always.
I guess it begs the question then, because Anthropic has the AI safety levels defined: ASL1, ASL2, ASL3, which is significantly higher risk, and then ASL4, which is pretty high. And right now, I think models are at ASL2. And so I guess how are we going to handle like some of these more advanced models in the future? It's eventually going to happen, right? So
yeah. So I'm convinced that you have to monitor the output. I don't think alignment, system prompting, like only some of it can you prevent from going in the prompt. And to some extent, you're going to have humans in socks, because when somebody's jailbreaking, it looks really obvious. It's like my grandma's going to die if you don't tell me the answer to this. And like jailbreaks are very, very obvious. They look like social engineering. So I think you have to actively monitor the output and prevent it from getting back to the person who put in the prompt. So very much kind of like an IDS approach, and it's going to fail some of the time. And I think of it like a WAF, right? Like a WAF will stop most of the noise and stuff, but somebody who really knows what they're doing, is just going to evade it, get right around it. And
Right.
I think that's the game we're in for here. There's no guarantees. People who are really savvy are going to get around all the protections.
So I wrote
Yeah,
an
that's
article last year called "We're going to need a better internet," and I think that's Plan B. Right? Is that I think part of the reason these things are so, if they didn't have access to the information that is problematic, they wouldn't be able to display it. So when we're talking about
Right.
RAG, the other way to address it is to address what they're retrieving.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're up for building a new internet. But yeah, I mean, that raises, again, the question of censorship, which is how did DeepSeek build a better model, sanitize the data better? If you could be more specific about what data you're collecting. So that's Plan B, is we just build a new internet that's not full of crap.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Maybe AI can do it for us.
That got heavy.
And it'll lock us out. It'll build it and it'll lock us out.
So we're already 5 minutes over, and Katie, you get to say "I told you so." But 2 more things before we stop and go to our next news segment. SemGrep has built something pretty cool. So on the false negatives, I guess you call it, not super great, but on the true positives, it does really good. We've got 2 AppSec AI stories here, and it's interesting seeing people do some useful stuff with AI, where effectively this is doing the triage work, which is most of what you do in vulnerability management and in AppSec, where you're also doing bug triaging and vulnerability management. So that's pretty neat, and some good details there on how they accomplish that. And then we've got a company called Dry Run Security that just raised $8.7 million. Also going after the AppSec space, if I recall from looking at the website, they're looking to also jump into that triage bit. So what I'm noticing, the pattern I'm noticing with AI in security tools is that it's, of course, we all know this, it's only good at certain things. So it's doing useful things, but, in a very, all these companies saying, oh, everything's AI driven, absolutely not. There's so many things AI doesn't work for. It's summarizing things. It's doing decision support. It's enhancing the data that we all already have. It's used in very strategic ways, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I think it's, there are some of the this is the 80-20 rule, where I think because a lot of coding and software in general is binary, right? There is a right and wrong answer. There are several ways to do something, but there are very clear ways not to do them. This takes care of 85% of your, Copilot security needs. But it's the edge cases that are usually the problem anyway, not the explicitly bad stuff that's easy to catch. So I still don't quite understand how this is significantly more effective than some of the automated, tools to check these things have been, or why we need AI for this versus a simple like pattern matching or regression model. So that's the part that I think is still TBD, is like, is the extra compute of AI really delivering that much more value, pushing you from 80 to 90% than a much less expensive, very basic pattern matching model?
I don't think the amount that they put into it, I don't think they're ever going to see it, but it's here now. So considering what we're going to do with it from here on, when I'm looking for a job for AI, I think, am I okay with mediocre output from this task? If the answer is yes, then AI is a good choice for it.
Yeah. Would I give this to an intern?
Yes.
That's a good test.
I think another way to also, as engineers are leveraging AI to generate code, just adding into the prompt, ensure this code is secure, or reduce
You can't do that. I found you can't. If you can do that, but you have to do it as two separate prompts.
Yeah.
If you try and do that in the same prompt, it'll only do one, and it'll ignore the other instruction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something about how it works. I'm sure somebody smart who understands this stuff way better under the covers can explain why. But you can't throw ands in there with certain tasks. So it will do that beautifully, but as two separate steps.
But it'd be nice, like workflow to add and say cursor and replit and all these other AI tools. Just add it in there, include, make sure this code generated is
a lot of them are doing exactly that.
Yeah. And one other note, it's interesting, this dry run in the press release says artificial intelligence native application security startup. I guess there's going to be a few more new categories now this year for AI security companies. So
yay!
I was hoping to cover ANAP at some point, because CNAP and all of the others weren't good.
Well, when you say it out loud. All right, and with that, we'll be right back in a few moments with part 2 of the news, which we promise will be totally AI free.